Noon on a Thursday. Tyler, you know what that means for me.
Happy weekend, Bill.
Happy weekend. That is right. A lot of sports to get into. It looks like it's going to be another incredible weekend of college football. We got that going on Tuesday night.
Yep. Every day now, pretty much.
Every day. Every day. Did you get into any of the games last night?
I did. I watched a little bit of Jacksonville State, Delaware. I have a weird affinity for Jacksonville State. I spent a week there in baseball camp after my freshman year of high school. So I've been all over that campus. I pulled my hamstring on that football field running drills out there. So every time I watch a game there, I'm like, oh, yeah, that's where it happened at.
Okay.
So, yeah, I have a weird affinity for the other Gamecocks because of that reason. So I always tune in when I can. But, yeah, they kind of ran away with that one against the Blue Hens of Delaware.
Yeah, the things we remember growing up. So you had that. Tonight, East Carolina takes back to their usual Thursday night spot.
They are the Thursday Pirates.
They will host Tulsa. So we get some college football going tonight. NFL tonight. We're going to have another good little game there taking place that should be a lot of fun.
Are you familiar with the name this game is taken on, by the way?
No.
The Icy Hot Bowl.
Really?
The two oldest quarterbacks in the league, Aaron Rodgers and Joe Flacco. I thought about this a moment ago. I'm 29 years old. Aaron Rodgers has been playing quarterback in the league for almost half my entire life. Joe Flacco's been playing it for 17 years? Both these guys have been playing quarterback in the league for over half my life at this point.
Okay, so you're accustomed to them.
I am.
You know what's going on. So we will get into that a little bit. Also take a look ahead towards the NFL schedule this coming weekend. But, yeah, college football tonight, East Carolina and Tulsa. Pro football, Pittsburgh and Cincinnati. And then we will get a little bit more Major League Baseball. And last night, thought we were going to get a good one.
It looked like it early.
And then it went downhill.
Yeah, really none of these championship series games so far have been the most riveting to watch. I guess maybe the first game between Toronto and Seattle was pretty close, but everything else has kind of been runaways for the most part.
So we'll get tonight, you'll get a doubleheader there. Milwaukee and Los Angeles starting at the 6 o'clock game. Did you see, by the way, you brought this up last week. I can't remember what particular game it was. I think it was Cubs. I think Cubs Brewers were going to play, and the Cubs Brewers had played like. How did the schedule shake out?
They played the late game. I think the night before, maybe.
I want to say it was vice versa.
Maybe it was the early game one day and the late game the next.
Yeah, I want to say it was the Dodgers and the Phillies. I believe not the. Yeah, I think it was the Dodgers and the Phillies had played the late game and then had turned and played the early game. And so it was like a 4 o'clock, 6 o'clock first pitch. And did you see the stadium? Is that where showing like
half full because
it wasn't even half full.
It was in the middle of the day.
Yeah. So 6 o'clock, so 3 o'clock start time for Los Angeles tonight, but you'll get Milwaukee and Los Angeles. Milwaukee trying to get on the board in that series. They're down 2-0 there, and the Dodgers have just been rolling. And then last night, Toronto finally got it going. They play again tonight at 8:33 tonight, but all the home runs came to fruition last night.
They've been holding it back, but yeah, they unleashed it. Certainly unleashed it last night. Shane Bieber. Not Beamer. Shane Bieber had a good outing on the mound starting for the Blue Jays. And, that's what they needed. Again, it's hard to sweep in any baseball series in the postseason, but Toronto looks like they got a little bit of their mojo back last night to get one in Seattle's big, and obviously they got to get another one, try and get this thing back to Toronto.
So we'll get into that. Obviously, that was kind of your national big news. Locally, you had Clayton White and Mike Shula speaking yesterday, and good news, nothing newsworthy coming out of that. But I do think now every time Mike Shula speaks, we criticize, we get overly dramatic, we read between the lines.
Well, I thought it was interesting yesterday because, and again, I'm the one that cuts this stuff every single week, so I got a pretty good idea of how long these guys' answers typically are. Clayton White very rarely will go past 35, 40 seconds. He's very quick, very short, tells you stuff, but doesn't really go too in detail. I was very surprised with Mike Shula and the deeper explanations he had on a lot of things yesterday, because that's not like him. Typically, he's very short, to the point, a lot of times doesn't really tell us anything with his answers. So the fact that he went on for a couple minutes on some of these did actually surprise me yesterday.
Okay, well, we'll let you listen to a little bit of that, and we will break that down as we fully get immersed into South Carolina and Oklahoma. It's going to be a beautiful day. I was looking at the weather before I came here. 80 degrees is going to be the high. You're going to be, if you get out and you tailgate early, it's going to be one of those nice, crisp fall mornings. Maybe you get the Blackstone going with some eggs and some bacon and some hash browns, whatever it is you do. This is going to be a fun game. I don't know how the game's going to go when they kick off.
Sure.
But I really feel like this is going to be a fun. You're going to get the beautiful day. The fair is going to be in town. It is a winnable game. We don't know the exact health of John Mateer. Sean Elliott's now the offensive line coach. What does that mean? What does that do? I'm excited about this game. I am really excited to get out there early on Saturday morning to enjoy the weather and to get into the stadium.
And we talked about this yesterday. You still have a fan base that's largely still believing, still interested, given what you've done in the past of making the back half of the season better than the first half typically is. And again, this is a very winnable game based on what we've seen out of Oklahoma, specifically last week against Texas. Like, okay, if you can win this game, spark something, then who knows what can happen against Alabama, Ole Miss, A&M, all those teams coming down the stretch, as opposed to, well, if you lose this game, then I think that's where a lot of the belief does end up going out the window, because, like, well, if you can't beat Oklahoma and an LSU team that looked vulnerable last week, how are you going to be able to beat these other guys?
So we'll get, again, a lot into that today and kind of what are you excited for, what are the kind of things that you're looking forward to, and things of that nature when it comes to this particular game. Last night, availability report comes out. Oh, boy. And good and bad, because let me say this, kudos to Shane Beamer. I think Shane Beamer is more honest than most when it comes to these availability reports.
Yeah, it does seem like the guys that are on it are on there for legit reasons. He doesn't just put the whole team as questionable like a Lane Kiffin or whatever to screw with whoever the next opponent is. When we see these guys on these lists, where they are and what their statuses are usually pretty legitimate. So, again, that concerns you when you see the guys that are doubtful, but you're optimistic about the guys that are questionable and certainly the ones that are probable as well.
But to answer that question, last night, yeah, you had a couple guys on there. Brandon Cisse listed as probable, so good news, he'll probably play. Questionable, Gabriel Brownlow-Dindy. We got to get him off of that questionable list. He's the big one for me.
I don't think there's any specific player that's had to have been helped off the field this year more than 99, because it feels like at least once or twice a game, all right, got a defensive lineman down. Oh, it's Dindy again. And, again, he's still played in, I believe, every single game up to this point. Yeah. So it's nothing that's been, too long term. But look, you're down in the trenches. That's where, a lot of things happen. So, he's been getting dinged up quite a bit this year.
There was a surprise last night on the availability report because we've talked about it and the need to find a center. And Marquis Anderson, it feels like they're grooming. They want him to be the center. Well, after some of the injuries I'd seen with him, I figured he was out. He was done.
Right.
Well, last night he pops up on the questionable list. And what does that mean? 50-50 to play. Now, Kason Henry, Sid Surratt, and Nolan Hay are all listed as doubtful, which means 25% chance or less.
Yep.
But the fact that Marquis Anderson seemed to jump to the probably questionable list. Now, do I think he'll play? Probably not. But yesterday was Wednesday. He's got 2 more days to.
If he can jump into probable on tonight's list, then you feel pretty good about his chances of getting out there on Saturday. And again, you've kind of run through every other option at center at this point. And the Nolan Hay thing, I feel like we didn't even get to see too much of him before he got hurt against, I guess, Vanderbilt or Missouri it was a couple weeks ago. So you haven't really gotten to see him fleshed out as your center. But last week we got the full Rodney Newsome / Boaz Stanley experience in one game, unfortunately. So if Marquis Anderson can perform the duties of center and is healthy enough to do so, I don't see what hurts in giving him a shot at that.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. That one caught me a little off guard just because I expected him to be further down.
Yeah.
I don't know if I expected him to be out, but I did not. I was a little surprised to see him listed a little bit higher than anticipated. Oklahoma put out their availability report right now, and Oklahoma's starting right tackle will be available for this weekend's game. Derek Simmons not listed on the initial SEC availability report last night, which means the veteran offensive lineman has been cleared to play Saturday. That's big for them. So you've got that going. Oklahoma relatively healthy going into this game. They got a wide receiver that's one of their top wide receivers that is dinged up.
Yeah, for the most part, you're going to get the best version of Oklahoma coming in. Obviously, the most notable thing there, John Mateer not being on the availability report. And from all the indications we got, and we talked to our guy Chris Plank earlier on this week, and he said, hey, he's been a more full participant in practice this week, which does make you kind of look back on last week. And apparently what Venable said was true about, hey, he's not really doing anything on like Tuesday or Wednesday, and he still went out there and started and didn't play well. So what difference does it make for him having a full week of practice to prepare as opposed to maybe only having a day or two last week before Texas? We'll have to see.
So we'll get into all of that. Also, can you be fired and still coach a game? It appears this might have happened.
You can. Do you want to, I think, is maybe the better question.
Well, yeah. We'll talk about that. Florida and Billy Napier, that situation evolving really almost by the hour, and we'll give you an update on that. David Waters of Gator Breakdown set to join us later on in the show around 2:30, and he'll even give us more of an update on what's going to shoot by 2:30. Napier may actually be fired.
Why not?
So we'll see what happens, but we'll keep you updated on all that. If you want to be a part of the program today, 803-404-6100. That's how you can join in. If you got a fair food that you're particularly excited about, fair's creeping down.
Yes, it is.
Just a few days left. Got to get out there and get your corn dogs. You're going tomorrow.
That's the plan. Tomorrow, late in the afternoon, get out there and enjoy some food and whatever else the fair has in store. I'm mainly focused on the food, though.
All right, yeah, we look forward to a recap on Monday. 803-404-6100. You're listening to Tyler Head, Bill Gunner, Captain David Dare. It is the halftime show. Texter weighs in and says, is there a timetable for Ryan Brubaker's return? I believe he's out for the year.
Yeah, God, I haven't even thought about him in a while. But, yeah, to my knowledge, it doesn't sound like he was going to be coming back at any point.
It was a big pickup, obviously, but he's another guy just has not been able to stay healthy the entire time he's been at the University of South Carolina. And as far as we know, I think Tyler agrees with me. As far as we know, he's out for the year.
Yeah, typically if they're not listed as like out on the availability report, you just kind of assume that. Same thing with like George Wilson on Edge Group, like these guys have just kind of been out.
Or Jalen Brown.
Or Jalen Brown.
Disappeared, yeah.
These guys that have been out before the season even started, they're just out. And until told otherwise, that's what we're going to assume.
803-404-6100. So Tyler is going to poke the bear a little bit.
Yeah.
And he wants to ask you, is Oklahoma what South Carolina was supposed to be?
I had this thought yesterday as kind of thinking about, looking at this game and previewing it and all that kind of stuff. And I look at what Oklahoma is right now going into this game. They are 5-1. They're ranked top 15 in the country. They had a quarterback that spent a lot of the first month of the year being billed as maybe the best quarterback in college football, getting Heisman buzz and all that kind of stuff. Obviously, all their goals and all those things are still in front of them. Their defense has been really, really good and been the reason why they've, been able to win the amount of games they have up to this point. And I can't help but think, this is exactly what Carolina was supposed to be. If you told us that all those attributes matched Carolina 6 games into the year back in July, you said, okay, that makes sense. Yeah, totally. I get that. And in a way, it's like Oklahoma's living the reality that we thought Carolina might be living themselves at this point.
So do you think Oklahoma's overrated? And then you can flip that around and say, given what you know about South Carolina, if South Carolina was 5-1, would you think South Carolina would be overrated?
If South Carolina was exactly 5-1 in the same way that Oklahoma is with the concerns they have on offense, then I think a lot of people nationally would look at them and saying, yeah, they're 14th and 5-1, but are they really as good as some of these teams, around them? And I think that's kind of what's being said about Oklahoma. And it's been interesting diving into it this week. We talked to Chris Plank the other day and, reading their message boards and reading some of their websites that follow the team. To be where they're at, they are really down on this team from an offensive standpoint right now. It's like the sky is falling, and I'd say they seemed pretty concerned going into this weekend taking on South Carolina.
Yeah, Chris Plank actually said that they act more like it's a 1-5 team, and not a 5-1 team.
I thought Ben Arbuckle 3 weeks ago was supposed to be this offensive genius,
guy,
and now they're ready to run him out of town. You know what I mean?
Listen, Saturday, and again, I'm picking South Carolina to win, but let me repeat again for the multiple times. I'm not picking South Carolina to win because I think South Carolina's better than Oklahoma, or that I think they're playing better, or that I think they're coaching better. Tyler, I ask you this. In this game, though, how much stock do you put in the game previous, just for future's sake, the game after this? Because this really is for Oklahoma, unless they really come in here and they're like, boy, what happened to us in Norman last year? We got to get revenge. This is a massive trap game for them.
It absolutely is. And when you look at their schedule as well, this is a very easy game for them to overlook, considering what they have coming down the pipe, where we talked about this in the last hour. They went from being 5-0 to looking down and maybe, seeing a reality where they end up 6-6 or maybe even 5-7, worst case scenario. Because after you come on the road and play an early kick against South Carolina in a game where, this is the farthest they're going to travel the entire season, you play host number 5 Ole Miss. You go to the road to number 11 Tennessee. You go to Alabama. You take on Missouri, and then you take on LSU in the last week of the season. Realistically, you could tell me they did not win any of those games, and this is a situation coming off of a huge emotional loss in a rivalry game last week to Texas that they may not be at the top of their game coming in here on Saturday afternoon taking on South Carolina, and you can take advantage of that.
But what we do think is, what we know, I think we know, is that their defense is dominant.
Yes.
It's the defense that has carried this football team through the first 5-6 weeks of the season.
It absolutely has. And, again, when you look at their offensive numbers compared, when they take on good competition, not great overall, but you have a defense that's not really allowing teams to get into the high teens and 20s more often than not. And, that's going to keep you in just about every single game and give you an opportunity there. And that's what they're, hanging their hat on at this point in time. Now, again, Mateer could go out there and be back to full health and spin the rock all over the place and look like an amazing offense once again. We'll have to see, but there's always this weariness until you actually see the results of it in terms of if they're going to be able to do that or not. But yes, the defense is nasty. As Beamer pointed out the other day, they're almost at the very top nationally in just about every statistical category on defense. And again, for a Carolina offense that they themselves have struggled so much this season, you wonder if they can score enough points themselves to be able to win this game no matter how few they hold Oklahoma to.
We're going to play this clip,
okay,
but I want you to, as you listen, I want you to think, is Brent Venables the defensive mind in college football? Is he the guy? Here's Brent Venables. This is with his press conference earlier this week as we're talking about his defense. This is him talking about trying to stop Lenore Sellers.
You know, he's got great toughness to him. He's really hard to bring down. He like ducks down, and next thing you know, he pops out of there. You know, and he's really hard to tackle. It's hard to get 2 or 3 guys to get him down, let alone one. You're lucky to get one guy on him, right? They got 5 guys up front to block, plus a back. That's 6. Sometimes it's 7 with the tight end, and then so if you got one guy free, that's 8. And now you got all these freaks out here that, you know, Harbor and Vandarius. These guys are like really good. They're really fast. So they've done a really good job of putting good players around him as well, and so you don't want to be in a whole lot of those one-on-ones either. So it makes it hard to decide on how you're going to play him. But great challenge. I'm glad that they talked about him, and they watched the tape and they played against him once, and he's been able to do that against a lot of people.
So what do you make away from Brent Venables trying to break down Lenore Sellers, and without going into what his game plan was going to be or is going to be, him trying to describe the South Carolina offense?
Well, I think he understands that Sellers has the capability of giving his defense fits. And let's look at the quarterbacks they've played so far this year. Bryce Underwood, true freshman. He's been fine. He's been decent.
Wasn't particularly good in that game. They held him back. They held him back.
And that was his first, I think, ever road start. So that was obviously a daunting environment for him. Jackson Arnold, nothing spectacular this year for sure. Arch Manning, we had written him off, and he had a good game last week, but it wasn't like spectacular. But there's no doubt about it. This is the best quarterback overall they've seen so far this year. And I know Venables understands that what Sellers is capable of. Maybe we haven't seen it completely this year, but that ability is always going to be there. And for a defensive coordinator, you do have to plan for that. Like, hey, this could be this guy's game to really break out and show you what he was a year ago.
803-404-6100. We'll continue talking about that. Let you listen to a little bit of Clayton White and Mike Shula coming up as well. But there's Brent Venables talking about how to slow down and stop Lenore Sellers. Real quick, being reported by On3 News, is coming out about 30 minutes ago. There's a significant concern within the football program about Cade Klubnik's availability to play on Saturday against SMU. Larry Williams reports. Klubnik suffered the ankle sprain late in the third quarter of the Clemson game. That line is down to 5.5, Tyler. But to transition gears real quick, Cade Klubnik now apparently being no injury report from the ACC. They give us the insight into the replay booth, but no injury report. But
I thought they had one this year. I think they started that this year. I believe. Now I don't know if they start theirs on Wednesday or not, but if I remember correctly, I do believe they have some form of a report in conference games, at least, telling you how things are looking for the upcoming weekend. Maybe I'm thinking of a different conference.
Okay, no, you're right. They started that, but it doesn't tell me when it comes out right now. It looks like it might have come out last night, but that's the first I'd seen. Yes, and most of Clemson's players are all on it. Pretty much 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 guys.
Yeah, and it's not a slouch of an SMU team. I know they're not maybe as good as they were a year ago, but nothing's off the table in terms of tough competition in the SEC for what we've seen out of Clemson this year. And if you're, I'm assuming, starting Christopher Vizina, then who knows what happens.
So a little bit of breaking news there coming out of On3 Sports and Larry Williams putting out that Clemson right now is starting to become doubtful that Cade Klubnik will be able to go on Saturday against SMU. 803-404-6100, how you can weigh in if you want to do so. We'll continue getting into this South Carolina game, a big one coming up on Saturday against Oklahoma, and we'll talk a little bit about, we'll let you hear a little bit also from Clayton White. When the offense is struggling, how much does it affect the defense? We'll talk about that. You're listening to the Halftime Show. So it's something we've all seen before. Defense or offense is doing their job. Other side, not doing their job.
Yep.
Human nature to get a little upset with the other side and be like, guys, we're carrying our weight here. What are y'all supposed to be doing?
Hold up your end of the bargain.
South Carolina right now defensively is, I think, more than holding up their end of the bargain. Offensively, South Carolina cannot score more than 21 offensive points in a game. And yesterday, during our coordinator press conference, Clayton White was asked about avoiding frustration with the offensive issues that they are currently having. I said 13.
But really, we always tell our guys yards don't equal points. So obviously yards, you don't want to, have those long sustaining drives to get down to the goal line to start with first and foremost. But I'm very proud of how they kept playing. One of our mottos is put the ball down. And we always say we don't care where the ball is located at. It's a next play mentality, and obviously they put it on display on Saturday. We can't get frustrated with what's going on outside of us, what we can't control. So we when we on the field, we can't say nothing until somebody gets 0 first downs, 0 touchdowns, and 0 points. Then we can start having expression our frustration out. But you can't. There's nothing. It's life. You got to keep on moving. So
Politically correct about as well as you can do it.
That's exactly what I expect the coach to say. And look, if you ask the players, they probably give you some form of the same answer, but there's a different dynamic when you're actually in the locker room, when you're actually on the sidelines when these things are happening.
Coaches can kind of, like Clayton White's maybe been there before. He can kind of be like, all right, I know what you're going through. I got it. I got it. I'm not happy with you, but I got it.
Yeah.
Players, on the other hand, at that age, 18 to 25 years old, they're a little different on what they feel.
A little more unfiltered where, again, a situation where I know it was at the beginning of the game, but on Saturday, defense goes out there, gets their stop, forces a punt, and then immediately the offense fumbles the ball, and you're right back out there, and they did their job again by holding them to 3 points. But that's kind of like the thing where you're almost kind of sitting on the bench with that side eye of like, doing our job, man. These guys over here not doing theirs. And, that's one of those things that over time can lead to a locker room split. Not saying that's what's happening here, but you can always see those things happening with some teams where one side's playing better than the other to where, the defense just throws up their hand and says, I don't know what to do. This offense can get out of its own way. We can only do so much.
Let's hear. That was Clayton White talking a little bit about trying to deal with the issues with the South Carolina offense. But here is Clayton White yesterday talking about dealing with the Oklahoma offense. This is him scouting Oklahoma yesterday during his press conference.
Good afternoon. Hope you guys are doing great. Brand new week here for us. We're excited, obviously, for a tradition-rich program like Oklahoma coming into town. Obviously, our weekly routine is really always starts with us. Meaning just starting with the coaching staff, or just motivating, getting our guys trying to be a positive influence on everybody around the building. I think most importantly, trying to get their focus as the week goes on, increase their readiness to play. And obviously, it starts with their style of play, with their offensive coordinator, Coach Arbuckle, and obviously their quarterback, Mateer. I think they do a really good job. Their running backs are really athletic tight end, big O-line. So excited to get this thing going on NC State Fair Week. I'm at the South Carolina State Fair Week.
Whoops. A bit of a slip up there.
Well, he went to NC State.
Right.
But, yeah.
He's been here 5 years, though.
You would think.
At what point do we have to hold Clayton White accountable for that?
Yeah, that was a little bit of a slip there.
803-404-6200. Let's go back. Tyler asked a question about, is Oklahoma what South Carolina was supposed to be?
Yep.
A couple of y'all weighing in. David says, I think Tyler is right. Oklahoma is what South Carolina was supposed to be, and it just hasn't worked out this year, but hopefully they can win on Saturday. That is the Gamecocks. That is. Another person said Tyler is 100% correct. Oklahoma and Vandy have taken huge steps forward, and while I think it says we have taken a massive step backwards. I don't agree with that on the massive step backwards. That's being overly dramatic. South Carolina is not living up to what they have been, but how about we do this? Give credit to Vanderbilt and to Oklahoma. Now, I'm not sure. You just mentioned it when you look at that Oklahoma schedule.
Mm-hmm.
Oklahoma very well could finish 8-4.
Or worse.
Yeah. Yes. I'm interested to see. I really am fascinated to see what Oklahoma looks like this weekend coming off of the Texas game. It's not that they had all their dreams and hopes and everything ruined, but it is a situation in which they've got to pick themselves back up off the mat.
Well, and, whether you believe in these things or not, there has been a direct correlation between the Texas game and how good Oklahoma's been under Venables. They lost it in 22, 500 season. Lost it last year, 500 season. Won it in 2023, went 10-3. Lost it again this year, and you look at that slate that they have coming up, starting with South Carolina, very realistic possibility they could be a 500 team again. And this kind of gets lost in the shuffle a little bit because we've focused so much on Napier, and obviously James Franklin got fired. Venables came into the season on a pretty hot seat himself. The standard at Oklahoma is so insanely high with championships and Heisman Trophy winners and all that kind of stuff. Being a 500 coach there is not acceptable. And, last year being another, 500-ish season, if you follow that up with another one this year, I don't know what's going to happen. But if things start trickling in the wrong direction, that conversation will start to heat up once again over Brent Venables and if he's the right guy for Oklahoma going forward.
Well, it's kind of like you said. He pushed all his chips in with Ben Arbuckle and John Mateer. All right, we got to fix this. Jackson Arnold didn't work. So they pushed all their chips in, and at least to date it's worked. But when we say that it's worked, what has it worked against? You had a Michigan team that, again, was still playing babying Bryce Underwood.
Yep.
You had Auburn, who I'm just not sold on, and now there's talk that Hugh Freeze ain't going to make it. I think technically he edged ahead of Billy Napier in terms of next coach most likely to be fired sometime yesterday afternoon before the Napier news came out.
We could have 2 more SEC coaches be gone by Monday, very realistically.
So, I'm not buying Oklahoma as this juggernaut program right now. Now, do I think the defense is good? Do I think Brent Venables? Let me go back. I asked you, Is Venables the defensive mind in college football?
Oh, man, that's a great question.
No Nick Saban anymore.
No Nick Saban anymore. You obviously have to bring Kirby into that conversation. Dan Lanning's a pretty good defensive mind.
Okay, good one.
He's definitely in the mix for number one, that's for sure. And again, he could have taken a lot of different jobs over his time at Clemson. He stayed there for a very long time and was the highest paid assistant in the country for good reason, obviously. And he wanted this Oklahoma job. It was a perfect opportunity, big blue blood program. And again, outside of 1 year, the results haven't been there for him. But yeah, and again, he is taking the reins of the defense, and they're playing like a Brent Venables coach defense is that other side of the football that they hadn't figured out yet. And like you said, he went out there, got Ben Arbuckle, who brought in John Mateer, and that was kind of the whole plan of, okay, just like what Vandy did last year with Tim Beck and Diego Pavia, it was going to kind of follow that same blueprint. And again, they're 5-1. We can't forget this. They are still sitting in a good spot with all their goals ahead of them. It just doesn't feel like the offense is where it needs to be. They can't run the ball to save their lives either.
This isn't a juggernaut coming in here. Like, that ranking might be a little inflated. The line is about 5.5. This isn't a juggernaut. It wouldn't, again, be a huge shock for South Carolina to win, and we'll continue talking about that. Plus, we'll get back into what's happening down in Gainesville. Billy Napier might be fired, but is still going to coach, but it's not a public firing. I don't know what's going on down there. We'll get into all of that with Tyler Head. He can explain that when we come back. You're listening to Captain David Dare, Tyler Head, Bill Gunner. It is the Halftime Show.
Welcome back in. Halftime show. Tyler Head, Bill Gunner, Captain Dave with you on your Thursday here on the game, wrapping up our number one. As we mentioned there at the end of that last segment. And by the way, we'll be talking to David Waters coming up today at 2:30 to get the real lowdown on everything going on with the Billy Napier situation down there at Florida. But it seems that yet another SEC coach, yet another Power 4 coach at that. I brought this up the other week. I can't remember this many coaches at the Power 4 level getting fired midseason that we're already having done so far, and we're on the track for several more here coming very soon, it looks like.
Yeah, this is the new trend because of the want to get out ahead of just, and I know the transfer portal's been pushed back to January 2nd now.
Sure.
But to get out ahead of that, to get out ahead of the bowl season, to get out ahead of the new recruiting calendar that now wraps up in December, you got to get out ahead of these things. And Florida's got a really good recruiting class.
They do.
You want to try and maybe hold on to that or see what's left of it. There's a lot of reasons behind now why you see these coaches being let go earlier than usual instead of being given the entire time to try and finish things out, maybe even turn it around. And I also think with Napier, and this is kind of funny, I think there's a fear that he does like slightly turn it around and get to 7 or 8 wins, and they're like, "Whoa, now wait a minute, we don't. That's not what we planned."
The funniest thing that came away from that Texas game a couple weeks ago, and Twitter, I can never quit Twitter because of things like this, but all the people that were putting like pictures of Nick Saban and be like Billy Napier when his seat's as hot as lava type things, because it's become like a thing, right? He's done it multiple times now where just we think, okay, here he goes. And according to a lot of reports, they had the buyout ready to go to fire him a year ago. And he goes out there, beats LSU, beats Ole Miss, and they decide to basically use that money for NIL purposes to bring in more talent this year. Well, guess what? Now they're back to still being a below average team in the SEC. So it seems like they've hit the final straw where no matter what happens this weekend, it seems like he's a dead man walking. I think Mississippi State's good enough to beat them anyway, but even if they do win this game, that doesn't seem like that's going to do anything to save his job at this point.
Yeah, the game this weekend, for those wondering, and you mentioned it, Florida and Mississippi State.
The Dan Mullen Bowl.
It's in Gainesville, and here's the other part to that. The bye week is next week.
Yes, which would be a perfect opportunity to make the change.
And then you get Georgia. So you get the bye week. So, yeah, hang in there. Get him through Mississippi State, and then next Sunday or Monday be like, hey, we appreciate everything you've done. Now, what becomes the question to me is, where do they go? Who do they go? I've got a huge opinion on it. I've got a huge opinion, and I know there's a lot of pretty good candidates. If I'm Florida, I'm finding out what the dollar number is for Eli Drinkwitz and bringing him there.
That's probably going to be at the top of the list of your calls. And again, going back to the point that I said about so many jobs being open, the more jobs are open, the more you have to start like ranking these jobs in terms of most attractive to least attractive. And like Florida doesn't have to worry. Florida's always going to be one of the top jobs in college football. They got the resources. They got the what you need down there to succeed. So that job will always be towards the top no matter who they're going up against. Same thing with Auburn if they do decide to move on from Hugh Freeze. But like it's interesting to me because like a UCLA who got out ahead of pretty much everybody when it came to firing their head coach. UCLA and Virginia Tech fired their respective head coaches basically at the same time. I'm sure the thought process was like, hey, we can go out there and land a huge candidate. We've got, a spot in the Big Ten. We're out in L.A., easy to recruit to a place like that. But now you're looking at that saying, well, UCLA is probably like towards the bottom of the list of Power 4 jobs now because all these other bigger, better jobs are becoming available.
Yeah, You bring up a good point. Good question. I don't know what UCLA's. I know what it was.
Yeah.
Deshaun Foster was not a good coach, and that program was
Tim
not.
Skipper may have earned himself the full-time job now, and Jerry Neuheisel maybe.
Yeah, that program wasn't trending in the right direction, and so forth and so on. But with that being said, Tyler, I can't help but wonder, like, did they think they were going to be able to get out ahead of everybody and be able to have, like, let's just say a choice of Eli Drinkowitz or who else am I leaving out? Like,
not that he'd go, but like a Dan Lanning or a Matt Rule. These names that pop up, Kurt Signetti, that pop up towards the top of the list. Because if you're in a situation where you're the only Power 4 job that becomes available, you become the most attractive, right? Because nothing else compares to you. It's like, okay, is this guy going to go coach here? Is going to go coach at Louisiana Monroe? But when you're up against 5, 6, 7 other Power 4 jobs, you can be like, oh, wait a minute. We may not get the kind of guy we think we're going to get.
Do we have a couple that are under the radar coaches that are kind of like I got two.
Okay.
Mike Gundy.
Okay.
Mike Gundy, take a chance on him, and then Dan Mullen. And neither of them are sexy hires.
Sure.
Neither of them are going to bring a recruiting prowess, but both of them can coach ball, and both of them are probably going to guarantee you some wins.
Yeah, I've heard and read a lot of the Dan Mullen conversation this week, and it's one of those things that, like, here's the thing. And I heard Andy Staples put this perfectly on On3 the other day talking about Billy Napier. Like, Dan Mullen, when it came to scheming and on the field stuff, great offensive mind, no problem there. He just didn't care about recruiting.
Exactly.
Billy Napier, great recruiter, not really good when it comes to the X's and O's on the field, and that's why the teams have struggled as much as they have despite the talent. So, like, if you could take the half of Dan Mullen that's good at calling plays and take the half of Billy Napier that's good at recruiting, you'd have the ultimate Florida head coach.
You tell Dan Mullen, listen, you got to hire some recruiters around you. You know?
Yeah.
Steve Spurrier wasn't good at recruiting. Steve Spurrier, like, the stories of Steve Spurrier showing up and basically being like, well, you want to come play with us or not? We'll beat you whether you're here or not.
But he also had the reputation where, like, he could bang his championship ring on the table, and that could probably get some people here.
A little bit, but he also, again, basically what it was with Spurrier was, hey, kind of like you said, I'm going to win. You can either play for me and we'll win together, or you can play against me and I'm going to beat you.
Yeah.
But with that being said, he had guys around him that really made the whole system go, and we have one here now as our head coach in Shane Beamer. And then when you lost those guys, things all of a sudden instantly kind of fell off the map.
And then he did the whole thing like, I may not be here in a couple years anyway, and that's just like a death nail in recruiting.
Yeah, don't do that. But it'll be interesting to see. Now, Florida, again, is set to open up here, we think,
by next week. Yeah.
Penn State's open. I still think Virginia Tech's attractive. Arkansas is the one that I think is sliding further and further and further and further down.
That's the one where you thought maybe you were going to be the only SEC job, and now you could be like the fourth.
Yeah.
Because Kentucky might come open, too, alongside Auburn.
I forgot about Auburn.
Auburn.
Yeah, and Kentucky. We'll see what happens there. 803-404-6100. That's how you can weigh in. We'll come back. We'll do a whole nother hour hangout with you. We'll get back into a little bit of college football. Time to look at the big picture, and Tyler's got some NFL discussion that we need to get into. You're listening to The Halftime Show.
All right, welcome back in. Hour number 2. It is the halftime show. Tyler Head, Bill Gunner, Captain Dave along with you here on your Thursday on the game. We'll get back into South Carolina and Oklahoma coming up here in just a second, and where Carolina might have some advantages in this matchup. But we rounded out the last hour talking the latest about Billy Napier, and this all stems from a report via Matt Hayes of USA Today Sports about essentially saying there's been a meeting of the important people down there in Gainesville that basically Billy's a dead man walking no matter what happens the rest of the year, and especially if they lose this weekend to Mississippi State, that he is, without a doubt, going to be out, as, again, we've all predicted for a while now. And, again, we'll get more details of this with David Waters coming up in the 2 o'clock hour. But, John, on the AAA Heating and Air phone lines, you want to weigh in on Billy Napier. John, appreciate your call. What's on your mind, man?
Yeah, no, man, I guess my question is, and I just want to just hear you guys kind of elaborate on it. Do you believe that there's over, I guess, just emphasizing coaching abilities? Like, are these guys, like, I understand Billy and Dan, like, they're not perfect. They have their faults. And I guess my question is, like, man, can one coach be perfect? Like, can he get it right? And my opinion, I just feel like it's just overemphasization of these men. They're not as good as we want them to be, and it just takes a team. And I just want to hear if you think we're missing sight of the team and putting more focuses on like a drum major instinct, the man in charge instead of the team as a whole.
That's a really good question there, and appreciate the call, 803-404-6100. And it doesn't help that we're in such an instant gratification era of college sports in general, as of now. It was years and years ago, and I mean, you look at like Shane's dad Frank when he was at Virginia Tech. It took him a couple years to really start actually winning some football games. Where in today's world, he probably would have been fired, by probably year like 3 or 4 because they just didn't see the results they wanted. So we get so impatient with coaches now that if we don't see the results quickly, we say, all right, well, this guy's not it. Let's fire him, move on to the next guy. And when you go to a place like Florida, that standard gets held even higher because Florida is a place that has tasted national championship success within the past 3 decades, and they've been scratching and clawing ever since to try and get back there. They've just not made the right hire that's been able to do that. And you are right. That is kind of the delicate balance that you have to strike, is how much of it is the coach themselves, how much of it is it the guys on the field, how much is it this assistants underneath them, because not every program can be built perfectly from top to bottom. Even the best programs, the ones that are winning national championships right now, are not these impenetrable forces. They do have weak spots, but the good tends to outweigh the bad in those, which is why those programs win a lot. And that's where the knock on Billy Napier comes in. For one, he has 8,000 assistants. If you go and look at Florida's like staff directory for the football program, they've got directors and managers of things you didn't even know existed, like social, recruit helicopter visits and things like that. Just ridiculous things that has this overbloated staff, whether he needs those people or not, but that's what he has down there. And again, Napier's gone out there and recruited really, really well and brought in a ton of good talent. This article that Matt Hayes wrote for USA Today specifically mentions that some of the money that was going to be used for the buyout a year ago was instead used for NIL, and that helped them bring in a guy like Dallas Wilson, who was a 5-star wide receiver and looking like one of the best players on their team this year, as he just started playing a couple weeks ago during the Texas game. So the talent's there. The coaching isn't what it needs to be. And part of the reason, specifically talking about Billy Napier here, is, and this article also points that out, last year when his job was saved, when they went on that little win streak at the end of the year and knocked off some big-name teams, one of the caveats they basically gave him was, hey, we'll keep you around, but you have to go out there and hire an offensive play caller, because when you're a head coach, you're juggling so many things. And I tip my hat to coaches like Brent Venables, to coaches like Steve Sarkisian, that not only handle the responsibilities of being a head coach, but also legitimately call the plays on one side of the ball, like Venables does with the defense, which we'll see this weekend, and Steve Sarkisian does with the offense. Out there at Texas, that's hard, right? Because you're not only focusing in on your game plan and the rhythm and flow of the game for one side of the football, you're also still being the head coach, how to make important decisions, communicate with your staff. All those kind of things are still happening while you're also calling plays. And again, those two guys are good examples of being able to do that. Billy Napier, not so much down there at down there at Florida. So they said, hey, we'll keep you around, but you got to go out there and hire somebody. But Napier, if you read the reports, apparently because of those games that they won last year, he got the belief in his mind that, hey, I can do this. I don't need somebody to be calling plays for me. This is my offense. So he's still calling plays, and obviously things haven't gotten any better, which is further fan the flames on why he's going to, be canned maybe as soon as this weekend if they lose that game to Mississippi State. But you're right, and I appreciate the call there, John, 803-404-6100. No coach is ever going to be perfect, but some coaches are more closer to perfect than other ones. And I guess at the end of the day, that is how we get the results we get and the turnover that we get, especially at a place like Florida. Like, look here, Billy Napier could have gone to an Arkansas and had these kind of results and hung around a lot longer, right? Like Sam Pittman, his tenure at Arkansas, it's lasted since what? He got there in 2020, and he's had his ups and downs, few good wins here and there, but hung around a lot longer than a lot of programs given the opportunity in the SEC because Arkansas' standard is a lot lower than these other programs in the SEC, considering they've not reached the same mountaintops that a place like Florida is. But at Florida, if you're not trending upward by the end of your second season, they're already ready to run you out of town. And again, Billy Napier's gotten a longer leash than I think a lot of us would have thought, because again, he could have gotten fired last year, but you also know that when you take those kind of jobs, right? Like Billy Napier went from the University of Louisiana to being the head coach at Florida. He had to understand the pressure and the accountability you have to have as that head coach and what comes with that job. And I'm sure, when he does get fired here, likely very soon, he'll talk about that. Like, hey, I knew what came with the job. And he even kind of mentioned that earlier on this week when asked about it in a roundabout way in his presser, saying, hey, we get paid a lot of money for a reason, and we get paid a lot more than we used to, and people expect a lot out of you, especially at a place like Florida that has that championship standard still at the forefront of their mind. But yeah, no coach is perfect, but again, some of them do bring a more total package to the table than others, which those are the coaches that have long tenures, win national championships, and all those kind of things. And unfortunately for Billy Napier, he just wasn't able to do that. Now, again, does he go back down to the G5 ranks? Does he go be a coordinator somewhere? We'll have to see. He's got to get fired first. But by all indications, and again, we'll talk with David Waters coming up a little bit later on in the show, by all indications, it does seem like he's essentially dead man walking. The question becomes, do you hang on to him through the end of the year? Or better yet, does he choose to coach out the rest of the year? Because Matt Hayes points this out in his article on Yahoo Sports as well, or USA Today Sports as well, that they're hoping that he stays around, saying, hey, we're going to fire you, but will you please coach the last 5 games, 6 games, however many games of the regular season, and then we'll let you go. Kind of similar to what they did to Will Muschamp in 2014. Or he could just walk and say, no, screw this, give me my money, and I'll take off. So that ball's in his court. Which way he goes with that, I don't know. But that decision will have to be made by him very, very soon, it does seem like. But again, appreciate the call, 803-404-6100. Getting back into this matchup with South Carolina and Oklahoma, there's a lot of things that I look at this as opportunities for South Carolina to take advantage of, because Oklahoma, as good as the record is, as highly ranked as they are and all that kind of stuff, they ain't perfect, right? There are areas of weakness on this team that I do think South Carolina can exploit. And Dave, if you will, can we go back to yesterday's cut list? This will be cut number 24. This is Brent Venables talking about needing the other guys on the offense to step up and help out John Mateer going into this weekend's game.
I'm certainly not going to lay it out there for you, but you're always looking for ways to help guys. So I'm not going to get into what that exactly means, but and again, John, he told you himself he feels like he needed to make a few better decisions and be a little more patient, let the game come to him, and he's anxious and amped up, and like everybody was, and probably pressed a little bit. But you play quarterback at a high level when everybody around you is playing at a high level as well. We need to get better. We need to improve. Everybody around them needs to be a little more efficient with what they're doing, fundamentally, physically, technically, all of those things. Mm-hmm.
So we don't know the full status of John Mateer. Again, Chris Plank told us on Tuesday that he's a full go in practice this week compared to last week where Brent Venables was honest about it, saying, hey, he hasn't really done much. And he still started against Texas, and maybe that's the reason why he struggled as much as he did. But if he is better this week, there's no guarantee that he's back to 100%. So he does need the help around him on offense to take the load off his shoulders a little bit because he's been the offense this entire season. They have basically no run game to speak of. They're running backs, and look, they went out in the portal. They got Jaden Ott out of Cal, who had a 1,300-yard season a couple years ago. High expectations for him. He's done nothing. Torrey Blaylock had 100 yards against Temple, for whatever that's worth, but against Power 4 opponents, he's done pretty much nothing. The yards on the ground have come via John Mateer's feet. And when you have a quarterback that is banged up and dealing with a hand injury, the less hits he gets, the better, right? So they really need their run game to step up. And again, does make you a little bit scared because LSU had concerns with their run game last week, and they ended up kind of breaking that open against South Carolina on Saturday night in Baton Rouge. So that's probably something that Oklahoma's going to look to exploit themselves. You got capable guys at wide receiver. Isaiah Satania is 6th in the SEC in receiving yards, really good when it comes to explosive plays, 2nd in the SEC in that regard. Is a good guy that can force missed tackles and all that kind of stuff when you get the ball in his hands. So he's capable. Now, Mateer has to actually get the ball in his hands because he was pretty inaccurate in their game last week against Texas. But you've got guys capable of doing things around you on offense. It's just them stepping up and being that assistance that John Mateer needs, because that's not what he had last week. And obviously the defense is going to hold up its end of the bargain. I don't think anybody denies that. Nobody's expecting South Carolina to suddenly go out there and score 30 points, especially on a defense like this. So Oklahoma's defense is going to be able to hold South Carolina at bay. Can Oklahoma's offense? And we're kind of saying the same thing on the flip side of this. We feel like Carolina's defense can hold Oklahoma's offense down to a certain number. Can South Carolina's offense score enough to eclipse that to be able to win this game? And that's kind of one of the biggest question marks on both sides going into this. Is defense feel good about? It's the offense that's the biggest question mark. And can you end up taking advantage of that and making this be enough to walk out of here with the victory? Because I believe points are truly going to come at a premium. This game is such a pivotal point for both programs as they enter the final 6 games of the regular season. How do Beamer and Brent Venables fare in the back half of their seasons in their times as head coaches so far in the SEC? We'll talk about that coming up next. It is the Halftime Show. Tyra and Bill Gunner, Captain Dave, along with you on your Thursday on the Game.
So I brought it up last week that it was about this time that Shane Beamer's teams tend to kind of turn a corner.
Yep.
And I thought this past weekend they played more physical. They didn't play much smarter. I think that's an understatement, right?
Right.
Didn't play smarter, but they played more physical. You've got the stat down here. Shane Beamer, end of the season, final 6 games. The stats bear out. He's been a pretty good coach, 16-8.
Yep.
During his first 4 years here in Columbia.
And that's where I think, again, we talked yesterday about the hope of this season kind of hanging in the balance for a lot of people, where if you lose this game and you drop to 3-4, I think there's a lot of people would say, all right, this offseason was fun, but I don't think this team's going to be worth anything. Talk to me next year type of thing. Not everybody. There's a lot of diehard fans that are going to ride this thing out no matter if you win every game or lose every game. But I think a lot of the people that are kind of on those fringes will start to check out a little bit. The national interest in Carolina has already waned a lot anyway, but it would really go out the door if you drop this one as well. So the hope and the belief is, okay, Beamer's done this consistently. Every single year, they always get better, always win the majority of their games down the stretch more often than not. And you're hoping that starts this weekend with what looks like the most winnable of your next 4 games, which are all against ranked opponents.
Did we think this a month ago?
Think what exactly?
That this was the most winnable?
No, because it looked like you were going to be taking on the Heisman Trophy favorite a month ago. And again, it's really funny how things kind of come to light even after one bad performance. But Mateer goes out, doesn't play the Kent State game, whatever. He probably could have put up 500 yards in that game, and it wouldn't have mattered. Then plays last week, doesn't play well. And then I think people really start to dive into the numbers a little bit and like, okay, wait a minute. These guys haven't really played anybody of note so far, and his numbers are okay, but they're not great. So maybe we overhyped him a little too much going into after the first couple games of the year.
The Michigan game was the big one.
The Michigan game was the big one.
Primetime game, he played well.
He also threw a horrible pick in that game, but was able to lead his team to victory, down there. But their offense has not been like exploding for 40 points a game or anything like that. They've been scoring around the 20s or so. Last week only got 6, obviously with a couple of early field goals against Texas. So I think we're kind of realizing like, okay, maybe this offense and John Mateer aren't as elite as we once thought. But again, a month ago, we said, oh man, God, that looks like it's going to be the toughest game, and Oklahoma could be the #1 team in the country by then. So I think they've come back down to earth a little bit. Meanwhile, Alabama, Ole Miss, and A&M do legitimately, you can make a case for all 3 of those teams to be the best team in the country right now.
Now, on the flip side of that, Brent Venables in his first 3 years is just 9-9 over his final 6 games.
Yes, and it's always interesting as well. The Texas game is always an indicator of how their years go. In 2022, lost the Texas game, went like 6-7. Last year, lost the Texas game. Basically the same thing. Won it in 2023, went 10-3. Best year he's had there so far. Lost Texas game last week. So is this the start of the slide for Venables to where, I don't know, they go 6-6 or 7-5, and people are normally like, okay, maybe this guy isn't the right choice for us after all?
No, and so it's interesting. I always equate it back to how teams practice in the preseason and how you kind of prep your team. And I can't say we've always agreed with what Shane Beamer does in the month of September.
Sure.
But it's the month of October and the month of November where you see the results that leads you to believe he's got a formula that seems to work.
It's kind of one of those things where, again, you'd like to have that consistency for the entire year and all 3 months of the season. But if you're going to be playing your best football, you'd rather it be towards the end of the year than the beginning, I guess.
803-404-6100 is how you can do that. So does it change your perspective for Saturday on what you see on this game?
I think it adds an extra layer to it. And again, we're talking about this from the standpoint of we think this game is very gettable for South Carolina. Again, you said you're going to pick them to win, and we can get in the specifics of that coming up tomorrow. But when you look at everything on paper, when you look at the fact that Beamer is just a coach that gets better in the second half and Brent Venables really doesn't, given the fact it's a road game, first real true road game they've had.
True.
Temple doesn't really count. You played a split fan game last week in Dallas, which you're used to. Like, this is also the longest trip they've made for an early kick. Like, there's a lot of factors working against
what do you think
Oklahoma.
is the biggest factor? Because I still say it's the play coming off the Texas game.
I think that's a huge factor here. And we talk about, like go back to a couple weeks ago where, Penn State lost a double overtime heartbreaker to Oregon. They go long trip out to UCLA, and we all said, you let the Oregon game beat you twice. Now, we've now learned maybe there are a few other factors that could have contributed to why they played so poorly. But on the outside, it's like, okay, you couldn't get yourself back up after a hugely emotional game in your home venue the week before, and you kind of sleptwalked in the next game, and you let a team that on paper was inferior to you upset you. And I think there's a lot less of a gap between Oklahoma and South Carolina than there was between Penn State and UCLA. So I do think that's a big factor here, that Oklahoma is not coming in here of the best mindset.
Typically, you would want this game at night. South Carolina at night, it's a really good venue and everything, so forth and so on. But do you think it's a positive that the game's actually at noon because of what you just said about the travel, about coming off of Texas, about everything it is? Because it's not that I think it's going to be a sleepy atmosphere. I will say this, let's all be honest, get there early.
Yes.
Get there early because you know the fair traffic's going to be there, so it wouldn't surprise me if people are still trickling in with about 4 or 5 minutes to go in the first quarter.
Yeah, no, that's definitely part of it. But, yeah, I think this game being early, and, again, this being the first true road game that Oklahoma's had and the longest distance they're going to travel this entire season, I do think that, factors into this. Again, you couple that with the unknown status of John Mateer and other issues they're having on offense, some shakiness on the offensive line when it comes to injuries and all that kind of stuff. Again, I'm not guaranteeing you a South Carolina win, but I see a pathway to how they could.
I'm guaranteeing the victory. Don't worry, I'll stand up for us. But I'm with you on that because this is going to be a referendum, I think, on Oklahoma and how good they are. And then on the flip side of that, you wonder, we talked about it, again, going back to Chris Plank, mentally,
yep,
where is both teams? Because South Carolina, I get it. I don't think they have. But it's kind of easy to check out if you're South Carolina to look around and go, well, we've lost to Missouri, we've lost to Vanderbilt, we lost to LSU, we're not where we want to be. Lenoris is, and we're going to talk about this coming up, is dropping on the big boards and stuff. It's easy for them to now do that too and kind of go like, all right, well, I'm in it for myself.
Yep.
I'm looking at the NFL draft or looking at next year.
I think we have enough of a track record to know that Beamer doesn't really lose teams, right? And that's what you worry about with a lot of teams, especially programs with high expectations of when they don't start off the season well. All right, well, the locker room's giving up. These guys are just phoning it in and going through the motions for the rest of the year. Coaches looking for new jobs or whatever that may be. But in the 23 season, again, where they were 2-6, they kept it together well enough to win 3 games in a row and be in a position to win a 6th game and go to a bowl. So didn't give up that year. Last year, 3-3 to start the year. Now, that was a more positive 3-3 than I'd say this one's been so far, but they held it together. Obviously went on the 6-game win streak, and we all know what happened, down the stretch there. So I just haven't seen a Beamer team quit or give up yet, no matter what they were up against. So I don't think that's going to happen in this situation either.
803-404-6100 will come back. Mel Kiper's got a new big board out. Now, weeks ago, Lenore Sells was way up there.
Yep.
Where is he falling to now? And we'll also get through some of the other people that are on that big board. You're listening to Tyler Head, Bill Gunner, Captain David Dare. It is the halftime show. Bill Gunner for Old Timey Meat Market. Well, you know my philosophy. It's Thursday. Therefore, the weekend has started. We've got college football tonight. We've got Major League Baseball. You got NFL football. That might equal a great night to grab some steaks from Old Timey Meat Market and grill out. And you got one of their 3 great locations, St. Andrews Road in Irmo, the South Congaree store, or the Lexington store, where you can stop by and check out, again, a phenomenal cut of meat with not only that, but the absolute best price. All you need to do is go by and tell them Bill Gunner sent you. Let me tell you, at Old Timey Meat Market, maybe you're not into steak. Maybe you want some chicken skewers. Maybe you want some great fish fillets. Maybe you want pork chops. There's so many great options at Old Timey Meat Market. You simply can't go wrong. And trust me, even on a Thursday, it's time to start thinking about that tailgate for Saturday. Stop by Old Timey Meat Market today. Tell them Bill Gunner sent you. Oh, 132 on a Thursday afternoon. Tyler Head, Bill Gunner, Captain Dave Adair as we cruise along and again get you set for football tonight. East Carolina and Tulsa. That is your college game. You got Major League Baseball. You got two Major League Baseball games. The Dodgers and the Brewers. That'll be at 6 o'clock tonight. And then you've got the Mariners and the Mariners and the why am I blanking? Oh, and the Blue Jays.
Yep.
Yesterday, somebody confused me yesterday. Apparently, when I was saying Shane Beamer pitching,
Yeah.
I also said that the Mariners were playing the Tigers.
Oh,
so now I'm having to
I didn't catch that.
Yeah, but anyway, Mariners and Blue Jays tonight, and then if you want to get into the NFL, A little bit of NFL action tonight. We're going to talk more NFL coming up here later on today. I believe you can hear the NFL game right here on 107.5 The Game.
Carolina calls.
There you go. And Carolina calls tonight.
Carolina calls tonight.
Well.
Coach Beamer, last thoughts before for Oklahoma?
No injury report.
No. Well, I will say on Carolina calls typically, because it's like an hour before the report comes out, he will sometimes be like, hey, report's going to come out in like 45 minutes. Here's what it's going to say. Yeah. Basically. So you might actually get a little more in-depth than Tuesday where he's like, just refer to tomorrow's injury report.
And we'll come back to that injury report again. The surprising thing, not that it's good, but I think it was better, was that Marquis Anderson is listed as questionable on there. That's not good. It's 50-50.
No, but it's better than where we thought he was going to be.
Yeah, exactly. 803-404-6100. So Mel Kiper has put out his freshly updated big board. Now, he did this earlier in the week, and Tyler, I've tried to juxtapose Lenore Sellers' season, which hasn't been bad. It's not been what we expected,
right?
Against what he is projected on these NFL draft rankings, and especially, I think maybe did it catch you off guard this summer to see him listed as high as like a top 5 draft pick, a top 3 draft pick?
No, and we talked about this a little bit yesterday because of the upside potential of what he is as a quarterback and an athlete, that there are plenty of teams out there that would say, hey, other teams may not look at him this high, but we'll take him and we'll mold him and make him the quarterback we want him to be and all that kind of stuff. Again, I go back to the Anthony Richardson thing where, it was all about what his abilities were and what he could do, not necessarily what he had done.
So the other part to this is, look, we have to be honest. We have to be a little fair. This is game number 7. I don't want to write off 2025, but Tyler, we do have to kind of look ahead to 2026 a little bit.
You do.
And so the question would be, are we almost certain that this is it for Lenore Sellers, that he is? Now, let me just point this out. Let me just point it out. I don't know what it means. The NIL deal is a 2-year deal for $8 million, $4 million a year.
Yes.
So that would be, that he's got that guaranteed, not counting, good Lord. What else is he doing out there? I
don't know. He's done a lot of stuff.
Exactly.
I saw he had a new one the other day. I forget who it was with, but he's doing a lot.
Right. So with all that being said, though, what is the position that he falls to where he says it's not worth it? Is it outside of the second round? Outside of day 1, second round?
Yeah.
Or no, that would be day 2.
Day 2. Yeah, probably. And again, every player is going to go out there and get their evaluations and help to make that final decision. Again, I think just on his abilities alone, a lot of teams will probably value him pretty high, regardless of what the final 6 games of this regular season end up looking like, where he could still go pretty high, even if his numbers aren't crazy, for the rest of the year at this point in time. I will say one thing that does give me some optimism on his ability to come back is, let's go back to when we learned over the summer about the offer for him to leave and go to Auburn to seemingly make more money in NIL. And, asked his parents and dad's like, what do you need that for? You don't need X amount of $1 million. Like, you're fine. Stay at South Carolina. They're working with you. They're developing you. Keep that going. So I do think he comes from a place in a family that would potentially look at this and say, hey, maybe you do need more development. Maybe you need another year in college to refine these certain areas, make sure you're as good as possible to go. Because we've seen so many quarterbacks take that jump to the league when they weren't ready. And here's the thing, the league will chew you up and spit you out real quick. We talk about a guy like Spencer Rattler that's doing well on a bad team that we think has the ability to hang around the league for a long time. But he played a lot of college football before he got to that point. And I think that's part of the reason why. Because, again, he had the option to leave after the 22 season and opted to come back, which was great. The year didn't end up obviously being the way that we wanted it to. But I think that extra year development probably went a long way in helping him be better prepared for the NFL. And I don't doubt the same thing could happen for Lenore Sellers, but I think the opportunity is going to be there for him to go regardless because, again, I do think teams are going to value him very highly no matter what the season looks like.
So, again, he was in the top 5 initially. Well, now this is according to, I think it was Monday, Mel Kiper putting out his newest big board. Lenore Sellers has dropped all the way to 21. He is behind other quarterbacks such as Dante Moore, Fernando Mendoza. He is behind Ty Simpson on that list.
Yep.
So you see other people kind of starting to pass him slightly with the way they're playing this season. And that's not even counting a guy, just other people who could jump up here late in the process.
Well, and you're looking at, if you were to go 21 overall, you're obviously going to go to a team that made the playoffs unless there's trades and stuff like that. So you're ideally going to an organization that probably has a quarterback established and somebody that you have the opportunity to sit behind and learn for maybe a couple years before they decide to turn the reins over to you, which, by the way, I'm always a big fan of that. I love what the Packers have done consistently when it comes to bringing in quarterbacks, letting them sit behind a veteran, and then giving them their opportunity. Seen it work with Aaron Rodgers, seen it obviously work with Jordan Love too, and I'm always going to be a fan of that for any quarterback, no matter how talented you are. I get it, some situations you have to come in and start right away because of how bad the team is. They don't have other options, but I wouldn't be upset if Sellers was put in one of those situations because that allows you to be better when it is finally your turn.
Here is what Mel Kiper writes. I'm going to shorten it up a little bit. He says, I've heard comps to Josh Allen and Cam Newton, but Sellers has not translated all those traits into consistent production. His ball location has been erratic, and his decision-making still isn't there. On top of that, he has taken 19 sacks, 7th most in the FBS. Sellers is still developing as a prospect, but you can't teach the skill set. There will be some teams that get excited about his potential.
And that's the thing. If this was just a standard vanilla pocket passer, probably a whole lot lower on the list because the numbers and statistics aren't what people are looking for. But that ability to make plays happen with the ball in your hands, and I imagine there have probably been plenty of NFL scouts drooling over seeing him make those little magic plays where he's, evading guys in the backfield, dumping edge defenders over his shoulders, and then running for 17 yards up the sideline or whatever. So, again, that upside and potential is always going to value him pretty high, I think, in the minds of a lot of scouts.
So that's from the South Carolina standpoint. Now, on the flip side of this, we mentioned it earlier, Cade Klubnik questionable for the weekend. Clemson sits at 3-3, but Tyler, going into the year, we looked at big boards and mock drafts, and Clemson would have 3 or 4 guys all picked in the first round. Well, boy, you talk about a disappointment, letting things down. Peter Woods, the 6'3", 305 defensive tackle, still the number 5 player on the big board for Kiper.
Yeah, and that, when you see these kind of things, if you're a Clemson fan, that further fuels your frustration with what this year is, that, wow, look at all these guys that are projected to be first-round picks, and we can't do anything with this team. Like, it doesn't make sense. But, look, Clemson has and always will be an NFL talent factory, and more often than not, you see those results translate to what they're doing on the field, but this year, that's not happening.
Number 15 on the list is defensive end T.J. Parker.
Yep.
And who, again, basically it says that the production hasn't been there for Parker or Woods this year, but that scouts still like their intangibles.
Yeah. And, again, that doesn't surprise me at all because you can't just look at 1 year worth of film and go down Avion Terrell, at 17. You can't just
That's the next one I was going to go to.
You can't just look at 1 year's worth of film and make that as an indication of what the player is. You look at the entire body of work. And, again, that potential upside, especially when you talk about guys on the defensive side of football that, teams in the league say, oh, well, I like this guy, what he does with this and that. We'll get him in here. It's going to work perfectly with our system, or we'll develop in this area, whatever it may be. So, yeah, that ability and talent is always there on the Clemson roster, and this year's no different.
So just a couple of names there. Real quick, to give you a quick rundown, this is Kiper's big board. Again, I mentioned number 1 is Dante Moore. Number 2 on the big board is Jeremiah Love, the running back from Notre Dame. 3 is Fernando Mendoza, quarterback at Indiana. 4 is Arvell Reese, linebacker from Ohio State. 5 on this list is, we just mentioned, Peter Woods. 6, Makai Lemon, the wide receiver out of Southern Cal. 7, maybe the best player in college football. Number 7 is Caleb Downs, the safety out of Ohio State. 8 is Jordan Tyson, the wide receiver from Arizona State. 9, a defensive end that's really catching my attention each and every time he plays, Ruben Bain for Miami. And number 10 on that is the Utah offensive tackle, Spencer Faenow, who is a monster human being, by the way, and has done pretty good.
Yeah.
5 starts on the season, no sacks allowed.
Yeah. It's pretty good.
803-404-6100. We'll come back. We'll wrap up hour number 2. You're listening to the Halftime Show. Bill Gunner from Mid-State Roofing, where for nearly 30 years they've been the leader in the roofing and waterproofing industry. And it's that proven history that is your assurance that their professionals are definitely going to get the job done in a safe, pleasing, and most importantly, timely manner to you and your operation. Whether it's your home or your business, well, leaks don't know exactly what time it is. They just occur. Well, at Mid-State Roofing, they're there for you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You give Mid-State Roofing a call today, and you will speak with either an on-call technician or a Mid-State Roofing employee. And it doesn't matter where you live. Here in Columbia, Florence, Aiken, Augusta, Charleston, you get the point. Anywhere across this great state, Mid-State Roofing is there to help for you. Give them a phone call, 803-356-1919. Tell them Bill Gunner sent you. .148 as we wrap up hour number 2. Bill Gunner, Tyler Head, Captain David Ayer. We've been discussing a little bit about Lenore Sellers, the Mel Kiper big board that's coming out. And, you know, I don't think any of us expect Lenore Sellers to return next year. And South Carolina's got quarterbacks in the pipeline, unproven quarterbacks, but they've got quarterbacks in the pipeline. You're going to have Aaron Noland, a former 5-star quarterback. You're going to have Landon Duckworth, a big-time 4-star quarterback. And then you got Cutter Woods, who everybody likes. So the cupboard is full. You're fine. But certainly, if you had your choice, you'd like to have Sellers back.
Oh, listen, they're going to do everything within their power, everything in their ability to try and make it as lucrative as possible for Lenore Sellers to come back, because you give yourself the best opportunity possible with him compared to the unknowns right now when it comes to Aaron Noland, Cutter Woods, Landon Duckworth, if he stays committed and decides to come in next year as well. You'd much rather take your chances with Lenore Sellers because it's more of a proven commodity. With what you got, again, I just don't know if I believe the NFL will be too tempting for him.
I do too.
Personally.
I do too, yeah. 803-404-6100. Out to the phone lines we go. Brandon wants to weigh in on this. Brandon, how you doing? What's on your mind?
Hey, guys. Doing well. I think we still got a chance. I mean, the way the season's been going, I still think there's a chance that he may want to, kind of redeem himself, so to speak, or play with a line that's actually going to block for him. That and to be able to play with his brother. So, I don't know. He's a pretty committed guy. And, yeah, it does look pretty sweet and tempting to, go towards the NFL. But I don't know. It's kind of hard to say that he'll just be satisfied with where he is right now and the way things are. Because, you're talking about a guy that, offered to give up some of his NIL money at one point to help recruiting. So, I think there's a chance he'll still be around for at least one more.
I appreciate the phone call, Brandon. Let's be clear about this. We, the media, I don't consider myself media, by the way, but we, the sports talk radio host who gas bag for 3 hours, you for 6 each and every day.
Yep.
We can debate this a little bit.
We can, and we have no inside knowledge to know which way this is going at this point in time. It's speculation at this point.
Right. Which is what we do ridiculously, rampantly around here.
And look, you can make strong arguments on both sides. If you ask Lenore Sellers about it, he's not going to give you any kind of answer because he's focused on the last 6 games. Same thing with Beamer and Shula and everybody like that. So we're not going to know until we basically know at that point. But again, there are temptations from the NFL and how I could see him going. But also at the same time, I could see pathways for him to coming back. If you ask me what I think is going to happen, I would say he's going to the NFL. But that's not a sure thing.
Well, and it's like you said. Look, do I think he's thought about it? Yes. Do I think he's at least that mindset is crossed his? Does he care about it right now? No. Again, this is something we're discussing, but it's also we're discussing it because, quite frankly, at this point, I mean, Tyler, we pine, we grieve, we want, we need college football for 9 months, and it gets here.
Yep.
And lo and behold, here we are. We turn the calendar to week 7 this week, and so there is that natural kind of, I think, human nature to look ahead to next year and go, okay, what does that team look like, especially if something goes a little south on South Carolina this weekend?
Well, and I think that's a key part of it, too, is you look at this year not living up to billing what it was supposed to be. And, again, you can still realistically maybe win 6 games, get to a bowl game, maybe win a couple more games than that. I don't know. But your opportunity to, make the playoff is out the window. And, again, that's where people thought you were going to take the step next year.
I assume so. I would say it's less than 2%. The only reason I say no is because if you run the table on Alabama, Mississippi, Texas A&M, say what you want about Clemson, I can see a scenario where somebody's like, that's a red-hot team, and we're not going to screw them again the way we did last year. But I'm with you. The playoff is not a discussion.
No, it's not. And I think that's where a lot of people are in terms of okay, well, this year didn't pan out. Where's my hope and optimism for next year? And if, again, he's not going to say this because he's focused on the middle of the season, but if Lenore Sellers came out today and said, hey, by the way, I'm coming back next year, 100% locked, no doubt about it.
Right.
Then you say, okay, well, now I can get excited about next year because I know he's coming back again and hopefully can have a better year than what's going on as of right now. But again, we're not going to get that answer until the offseason.
I'll just also say this, and I don't know if people care about this. I'm sure that you'd rather have Lenore Sellers back. If he were to come back, that quarterback room changes dynamically.
Oh, yeah.
So they ain't sticking around. Nobody's...
This is where you start playing quarterback math, which is one of the most intriguing things about this era of college football. It's like, all right, we got a guy that came in as a true freshman, got a guy that came in as a redshirt freshman, got another guy coming in as a true freshman. Again, theoretically, if Lenore Sellers says, all right, which of these guys or which 2 of these guys decide, I'm going to pursue my own opportunity, one of them stays.
Right.
Probably. Maybe 2 of them stay. I don't know. But that whole dynamic of, all right.
It feels like Cutter Woods is the more likely to stay. No offense to him. He wasn't the highly rated recruit. Aaron Nolan can kind of still point back, hey, you guys remember my Rivals ranking and 24/7 Sports ranking?
And the thought was with Aaron Nolan, okay, Sellers comes back for year 2, balls out, goes to the NFL, and then here's your next in-line guy. Now, again, he's not proven anything in college football, but that's what the thought process from a lot of people was when he came in here. And, again, if Sellers did decide to come back, then he's like, okay, well, now am I waiting another year? Am I going somewhere else and playing? Again, you start shuffling the deck around a little bit because the card that you weren't expecting to have at that point would be back.
803-404-6100. We'll come back next hour. We'll cover this a little bit more, but we'll get into the big picture of college football. It's going to be a great, great, great weekend. On top of that, let's catch up with David Waters of Gator Breakdown, where right now, who knows what is going on with Billy Napier, but we're going to try and get to the bottom of it the best we can and speak with David Waters because another job coming open, man. Another job coming. Yeah. And this is going to be a fun offseason, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah, no doubt about it.
Again, he's Captain David Dare, Tyler Head. I'm Bill Gunner. You're listening to the Halftime Show. Hour 3 is on the way. rolling into hour number 3, Tyler Head, as we get you set for night of sports. Tulsa 2-4 on the season. East Carolina 3-3. Does that get your goat right there? Yeah.
Yes, as I'm watching Matt Berry live from the ECU campus ahead of tonight's game. Again, we've determined that East Carolina is the team of Thursday night.
Right.
And you know what? I'm for it.
Okay.
I like because again, the ACC used to be like the conference that would play on Thursday nights because you'd get like, I don't know, Virginia Tech and, Boston College or something like that. And you get that occasionally. We had Wake Forest and somebody play a couple weeks back on
North
Thursday. North Carolina State, that's right. But it seems like the AAC is, or the AC, they're just the American Conference now, has seemingly kind of taken that form themselves where they typically play on Thursday nights.
And that's a wise decision. I mean, it's
Sure.
kind of like what the MAC's done. It's kind of like what the Sun Belt is. What now? Tuesdays. And MAC is Wednesdays.
I learned last night watching the Jacksonville State Delaware game. Apparently, they call it weekday CUSA. Like that's their thing because at the 50-yard line under the Giant Gamecock, it said weekday CUSA.
Okay.
Which I call CUSA, but CUSA rhymes at least.
Okay.
So that's their like little hook tagline. It's not the same as Fun Belt or Maction. I don't know what the AC on Thursday. I don't know. Something catchy.
It just doesn't hit as hard.
Sure.
Until I tune on a MAC game and it's about a week or two. And it's like foggy and there's snow.
Yeah.
And there's like 70 people in the stands. It's just nasty weather. That's when it hits me like, all right,
It needs to be like Eastern Michigan playing host to Kent State. There's 12 people in the stands. Yeah. It's snowing. There's a strength coach out there in a tank top yelling or something like that. Clearly not affected by the cold. And it just needs to be the ugliest, most weirdest game of football you've ever seen in your life. That's Maction to me.
I'm with you on that. Yeah. So you got that coming up. Not that, but you got East Carolina and Tulsa tonight. Also tonight, Pittsburgh and Cincinnati. That game in Cincinnati. And Tyler, you had the stat. It is the Geriatric Bowl, the Icy Hot Bowl,
the Bengay Bowl, whatever you want to deem it, the Tylenol Bowl, or something along those lines, because you have the two oldest quarterbacks in the league, in Aaron Rodgers and Joe Flacco taking each other on as divisional rivals.
Divisional rivals.
I know that's crazy to think about. And by the way, Joe Flacco's almost punched his ticket for visiting all 4 AFC North teams. If for some reason Aaron Rodgers retires and they bring in Flacco, he can complete the round trip by being a Steeler at some point.
What do we make of Aaron Rodgers' season so far?
I think it's been solid. You look at his numbers and look, he's not MVP Aaron Rodgers anymore. Not that anybody expected him to be, but I think it's been a good, solid season. Nobody's talking about him being the best quarterback in the league, but he's done enough. His defense is playing well. And by the way, the rest of that division collapsing around him is helping too. Where I really feel confident in saying they're probably going to win the AFC North, make the playoffs. What happens then, I don't know, but he's had a perfectly fine season.
I think actually, too, I've not watched Aaron Rodgers this year, so I'll tune in. So far, Rodgers completing 69% of his passes over 1,000 yards, but 10 touchdowns and 3 interceptions on the season. So, like you said,
very good.
I don't want to say he's showing his age, but he's at least holding off Father Time just a little bit longer.
Well, and I think as opposed to when he came into the Jets, because he'd still had some good years in the last couple of years, including what his last MVP wasn't all that long ago with the Packers. I think there was an expectation that you were getting prime Aaron Rodgers with the New York Jets. Obviously, and there's his Achilles, all that goes out the window. I think when people look at him going to the Steelers this year, it's like, okay, you're getting a 41-year-old man with one good Achilles. So the level of expectation, the ceiling was only set so high. And again, he's doing fine.
Yeah. 803-404-6100. Also tonight, Major League Baseball this afternoon. Major League Baseball, again, we mentioned it, starting at 6:08 this afternoon. Dodgers look to go up 3-0. They've got Tyler Glasnow on the mound, Aaron Ashby going for the Brewers for that series, and it just feels like the Dodgers have become a machine right now.
It does. Again, the law of averages tell you this is probably the game that the Brewers probably end up winning.
I don't see it because
it's more interesting, but I can't go with anything but the Dodgers here.
So that'll be 6:08 tonight. So you kind of get home, get the dinner going, get the kids going in the baths and everything, have that on, to get some dinner and then get set for football. And then late tonight, 8:33, Toronto and Seattle. And you mentioned it earlier. It's not been, in terms of close games, great games, it's not been a good series, but it is a good series.
It is. And again, if you like explosion on offense, well, this is the series for you, because the Mariners were hitting the home runs for the first couple games. Toronto caught back up with them last night with all the ones that they blasted. So if you want to see a lot of sparks and excitement, I feel like this is the series for you.
I didn't realize this until just now, just because I just didn't realize it. So Aaron Rodgers is how old?
41, I believe.
Joe Flacco's how old?
Is he 40?
I have to
39?
go back. I got to go back and look. Do you know who's on the mound for Toronto tonight?
Oh, God, who?
Max Scherzer.
Oh, my God.
41-year-old Max Scherzer. It is a night all the way around of the old guys taking over sports.
Flacco is 40.
Flacco's 40. So your three professional sports games that feature really good stuff all feature 40-year-old. Hey, good for them. People still getting it done in their later years.
And those two games will be starting basically at the same time. So you can watch alternating drives between two 40-plus-year-old quarterbacks and Scherzer starting for the Blue Jays.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Scherzer on the mound tonight. And again, that game set for about 8:33 tonight on FS1. Last night, we got the availability report from South Carolina for the upcoming game against Oklahoma. Slightly surprised that there was nobody out. Slightly surprised that Marquis Anderson was on the doubtful list. Case and Henry, I now kind of go, we're going to be out without him for a few weeks.
Yeah, it kind of seems that way, which is disappointing because, again, he's been probably your best overall offensive lineman so far this year. And again, when you look at just that group, you have what was your starting right tackle, you have what had been primarily your starting left guard in Shed Surratt, and then a guy in Nolan Hay that had made a start at least at center that we just didn't get to see a whole lot of. So you're effectively talking about three starters being down if they stay on that doubtful side of things going into this week. And which, again, you pretty much dealt with all those guys being out with the exception of Shed Surratt, who got hurt in game last week. So
he was out game one, too.
He was out game one and then got hurt early in last week's game. So you've gotten used to playing without him to a degree. So it's not anything you're not used to working with, but it is unfortunate that three starting caliber guys aren't going to be available.
The question will be, and we're going to get into this a lot tomorrow, who do you put at center? Who plays the center position? Now, Trevon Ball has some experience there, too.
He does.
You could move him there. You could maybe move Rodney Newsome over to the left guard, or, you have options, but I don't think it's the options that you want to be able to have.
Yeah, and it's one of those things, too, where now that Sean Elliott's taking over, did he have an idea in his mind this entire time, like, man, I really like to see so-and-so play center instead?
I think so. Don't you generally, like, as you're looking at, it's not like he was completely removed from the tight ends are not. They're part of the offensive line. There's blocking there.
He's the run game coordinator.
Right.
Running the football also includes the blocking scheme up front. So I imagine, to what degree, I don't know, but he had some involvement with the O-line to some degree. And look, every coach that gets put into an interim role ends up making some form of change, where I'm sure he maybe did have an idea of like, I'd rather move this guy here, that guy there, but obviously it wasn't his place to step on Lonnie Teasley's toes. But now that it is his job, I wouldn't be surprised if we did see maybe a little bit of a radical shake up on the line this weekend.
I'll be interested. Also keep an eye. I wonder if he goes with Jatavius Shivers over Josiah Thompson there at left tackle. There's been some discussion that could have happened last week.
That's an option as well. Again, Shivers is played sparingly going all the way back to last year. They like to use him as like that extra guy on the end and like a tight end type of role at times last year as well. So again, when you've struggled as much as the offensive line has, nothing is off the table. So whatever radical idea Sean Elliott has, go for it. I'm for it.
803-404-6100. Reminder, coming up tonight, we will have Carolina Calls for you right here, 7 o'clock from Backstreet's Bar and Grill. It'll be Shane Beamer talking. We'll see what information we get out of him. Also be just interested to see what his kind of tone is after a week now. I don't want to say settle down. He was a little chippy on Tuesday. I wouldn't say overly chippy, but he was You could tell. You could look. Nobody likes to lose.
Sure.
Okay, and losing wears on people. What was it during the documentary back in August? His wife said, "Well, when we lose, I don't really like to go out of the house."
Yeah. Well, she probably hasn't liked going out of the house a lot in the last month.
So my point, I'm not. This isn't like, oh man, Shane's being a baby or Shane's, but Shane wears it on his sleeve. And I thought on Tuesday he was a guy who's a little frustrated. Look, also here's the other point. You commit the number of false start penalties that they did. You don't get over it on Saturday evening.
You don't. And again, Beamer's a big relationship guy from what it seems. And look, firing Lonnie Teasley probably wasn't easy for him. You know what I mean? And that's a guy that's been with him for a while.
Did he fire the previous running back coach?
Ontario Hardesty.
Did he fire him?
Fired, chose not to retain.
Well, there's a difference when you openly fire somebody. There's
I don't know if we got the specific detail on exactly how that went down. He just did not return for the 23 or 24 season, and Markel Blackwell's been there since then. So you can make of that whatever you will. But yes, this was a true firing on Sunday that I'm sure has an effect going forward, because again, Beamer's not really been the guy to do that kind of stuff. Most of his staff changes have been because other guys under him have chose to move.
Right. 803-404-6100. We'll come back. Let's take a big picture look around college football. It's going to be a fun weekend. We'll get into that. You're listening to the Halftime Show. Bill Gunner for the Mortgage Guru, Jacob Crowder and First Palmetto Bank. All right, what are you thinking about here at the back end of 2025 and the beginning of 2026? Have you thought about purchasing a new home? Have you thought about building a new home? Or maybe you're just thinking about refinancing. You're seeing those interest rates right now and think, now is a good time. Well, the first step you have to make is calling Jacob Crowder today. That's right. If you don't give him a phone call, you won't know what options and what availability are to you. So give him that phone call. First Palmetto Bank, locally owned and operated right here in the Midlands, and they're ready to help you. So don't wait around. Give them a phone call, 803-779-1005. That's how you can reach out to the Mortgage Guru today. Ask him what options are available for you, and then go from there. He's the Mortgage Guru, Jacob Crowder with First Palmetto Bank. Coming up in about 15 minutes, David Waters of Gator Breakdown will join us, and we'll get into their issues down there. Boy, it feels like we have issues here, right?
Yep.
We don't have issues here.
It's a classic case of at least we ain't.
Exactly. So we'll catch up with David Waters, and we'll get you an update on what is transpired. We assume within the next 12 minutes that Billy Napier will still be employed, but it is kind of a keep refreshing the button kind of thing.
The chances of that changing are not zero.
Yeah, good point. So Saturday, this is just it's just amazing what we're getting here on a weekly basis from college football. Now, we mentioned Tulsa and ECU tonight. Tomorrow night, if you want to check it out, Louisville and Miami.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not putting Miami on upset alert.
It's a watch-out game. If they were in Louisville, I think that expectation of, hey, watch out is a whole lot higher, but having that at home does help.
Having it at home, but it's Friday night in Miami. Over under 71 people. That accidentally, 20 of which accidentally wander into the stadium.
Miami is such an interesting phenomenon of like where fan interest lies in a city like that. Because I don't know, if you look at a team like Georgia Tech, right? Sitting in Atlanta, they're having a good season. If they were playing on Friday night, as many things they are doing in Atlanta, I have no doubt they'd probably sell that game out, considering the fact that they're doing well. But like Miami, even as big a brand as it is, even during its best seasons, and I get it, they're trying to fill out Hard Rock Stadium, it's the fan interest doesn't always seem to be as high as you think it would be.
And there's a little statistic that comes up on ESPN. Louisville has the highest sack rate of anybody in the ACC, and Carson Beck has not had a problem taking a few sacks already this year. And there's another one, Louisville leading the FBS in pressure rate at 55%. So again, that spread there is 13.5.
Yep.
So it's a big spread, but just keep an eye. On. Let's go to Saturday. Oh man, the noon games. Now here's something for you. Vanderbilt, ranked 17th, host number 10 LSU. Noon game, ABC. Vanderbilt favored by 2.5.
I buy it. Okay. I mean, again, we saw Vanderbilt a couple weeks ago. We saw LSU last week. I'm looking at just how they played against Carolina. Vanderbilt had a more impressive win than LSU did, and I get the transitive property doesn't always translate over. Vandy's also coming off a bye, didn't have to play last week. Again, how healthy is John Mateer? We still don't know. I like Vandy, which is a crazy thought, but I like Vandy.
Wait, which quarterback? Oh, Garrett Nussmeier.
Sorry. Yeah, Garrett Nussmeier. That's what I meant. Nussmeier. Still probably not at full health. And, again, I don't know. I like Vanderbilt a lot. I think they're a team that's capable of being that 8 to 9 win team that we didn't think was possible.
What is more demoralizing to LSU fans? Have it been losing to South Carolina at home last week in a night game, losing to Vanderbilt on the road in a noon game? By the way, 11 a.m. kickoff on that.
Yeah, I think still losing to Carolina would have been a little bit more demoralizing considering what Carolina was going in this game. As tough a pill as it is to swallow to lose to Vanderbilt, there's at least they're at that point in time number 17, and they're trending upward where Carolina was kind of trending downward, it seemed like. And I think Carolina beating them at night in Baton Rouge would have been more demoralizing.
Georgia Tech, number 12 in the country, just quietly skimming along, cruising along out there.
Should be number 12 because they would have called a proper offsides against Wake Forest. They wouldn't be, but still, yes, they're winning.
Well, on the road at Duke Monday. On the road at Duke Saturday. Get it right. And that game's at noon, but Duke favored by 1.5.
Yeah, like Manny Diaz's Duke team kind of flying under the radar a lot right now. There's a lot of decent teams in the ACC. We kind of think about the upper echelon with Miami, with Georgia Tech, Virginia, a team. Don't overlook them by any means. But kind of that second tier is all very capable teams, and Miami's in that. Now, is Manny Diaz maybe looking at a Penn State head coaching job that could be a distraction?
He's going to throw stuff out there.
He's somebody that is on the list, being a former defensive coordinator there under James Franklin. Does that cause a distraction? We don't know, but I'm not shocked. Because here's the thing. Georgia Tech managed to get in rock fights in every single game, right? We talk about the toughness of Haynes King because he has to go out there and put his body on the line to beat just about everybody. So I expect this to be another nip and tuck, drag out type of game once again.
Also at noon, a rematch of the national championship game 2 years ago, Washington and Michigan. And I just bring this up because last week, maybe one of the biggest surprises to me was Michigan getting thumped by Southern Cal out in L.A.
Yeah, I didn't see that coming. And by the way, props to Southern Cal for, quietly going about their business and looking like a better team. They lost that game to Illinois. That was a wild back and forth after traveling, halfway across the country. So things are on the up and up for Southern Cal. But I don't think Michigan is, and God, there's conversations about Sharon Moore's future right now in terms of if they want to continue on with him or not. But I think, especially with a freshman quarterback, you're going to have some bumps in the road to be expected, right? So that's not a crazy thing to have happen. That's a high-octane offense that Southern Cal has going up against a good Michigan defense, but not the national championship defense from a couple years ago.
So that's kind of your noon slate. A couple other games there going on as well in the noon slate. Obviously, South Carolina and Oklahoma, Arizona and Houston. I don't know why they would play that game so early, but that's on FS1. So that's kind of your noon slate. Going to the 3:30 games. Texas A&M. Hey, Bobby Petrino, you gave it your all last week. Here's another chance for you, buddy.
Last week, Arkansas was my popular upset pick, and I think they're going to be that again. We can make our case for those coming up tomorrow, but I have a feeling I'm going to go this way again because getting this game at home, by the way, they had to go to Rocky Top last week, but getting A&M, who's feeling great right now. A&M is on top of the world. Right. Everything's going right. They're being talked about as a national championship contender. 8-4 is always right around the corner, though. That dark cloud of 8-4 is always lurking until proven otherwise, and this just seems like one of those games. Because here's the thing, for Arkansas to be in the situation where they fired Sam Pittman, they were in 2 of the games they lost. They got blown out by, Notre Dame. But the other games, they've at least been competitive in. And again, I say it all the time. Bob Petrino, terrible person, good football coach. He's going to have that. He's going to give them the opportunity to be in that game late.
We think that Billy Napier could be fired.
Yep.
By the way, I didn't even mention it. Friday night late, North Carolina goes to California.
That's right.
Bill Belichick could conceivably get left out in California after the game. Here's another one. Keep an eye on the tarmac or whatever, the after game. Ohio State at Wisconsin, where Luke Fickell appears to be on his deathbed.
That could get pretty ugly. Like, that could be one that you have to shield the children's eyes of what Ohio State is capable. Wisconsin lost 37-0 to Iowa.
Yeah.
Iowa doesn't score 30 points on anybody.
No.
So Ohio State, if they wanted to score 90, they probably could.
Yeah. Huge one at 3:30. Number 5, Mississippi. Number 9, Georgia. Revenge game for Georgia here.
Yeah. Here's the thing for me. Georgia keeps getting off to slow starts, getting themselves in holes. Did it last week being down 10-0 to Auburn. I don't know with how high octane Ole Miss's offense is. I don't know if you can afford to get down multiple scores and expect to claw your way back in this one. So hot start for Georgia is going to be key in this one to me.
Georgia favored by a touchdown and a half in this thing.
That's pretty big. Now,
spread, yeah.
I think a lot of people look at what Ole Miss did last week by messing around with Washington State. Can we all agree that they were probably looking ahead to this game?
Probably so.
Probably paid about half attention to Wazoo.
11 o'clock game.
11 o'clock game, sleepy. You never felt like they were going to lose the game, but it's like, okay, you're not pulling away, but they're going to bring their best coming up on Saturday. I'm interested to see how Georgia can contain Trinidad Chambliss, but bit of a toss-up here.
Mentioned it, Cade Klubnik, questionable. SMU and Clemson at 3:30 on the ACC Network. And just because we cover them and I love them, and this is a fun little rivalry game. Coastal Carolina and Appalachian State. Dow Loggins at 3:30 on Saturday host Coastal Carolina. Coastal not having their best year. They're struggling a little bit. Tim Beck's got to kind of get things turned around. They're 3-3 on the season. They've alternated wins and losses. They thumped Louisiana Monroe last week 23-8, but fun win there up in Boone.
Yeah, you can get some advanced scouting on Coastal before they come in here towards the end of the year, and we're cheering for Dow Loggins, right? Like we all feel, especially I guess in retrospect of how the Shula offense has gone, like we all feel fondly about Dow Loggins.
I'm pulling for a good game because I pull for Coastal too. Coastal,
okay, all right.
Coastal's become kind of my team number 3 behind South Carolina, Georgia, and now Coastal. That's your afternoon slate of games there coming up on Saturday. You go to the evening games, And again, should be another fun, really slate and it's all highlighted by number 11 and number 6, Tennessee, Alabama. Just think about that on Saturday for the SEC. Vanderbilt, LSU, Georgia, Ole Miss, Tennessee, Alabama, 7:30. That game in Tuscaloosa.
I still don't feel right about this game being played at night because this was always quintessential 3:30 on CBS, and I get it. Now you have more flexibility with the ESPN package, but like this game needs Vernon Gary at 3:30. That's kind of what I grew up on and what I'm used to. But I mean, I can make arguments both ways. Again, I think Alabama is maybe playing like the best team in the entire country right now. However, that defense is not, a Nick Saban defense by any means. They give up points, and Tennessee can score a lot of points very quickly. So I would probably lean towards Alabama, but I don't know.
Well, we talk about the gauntlet that is the SEC. Alabama's doing it, and it just feels like they're due for one that catches them. You wear out everything. We'll see what happens. Number 20, Southern Cal, at number 13, Notre Dame on 7:30.
See, this is the game Notre Dame needs to win all their games regardless, but like this is the feather in the cap game, right? Because Southern Cal is probably better than a lot of us thought they were going to be, and this is the one game that I think, because they lost to Miami, they lost to A&M, this is the one game that can really booster Notre Dame's resume and trying to make the playoff coming up at the end of the year if they continue to win out. If they lose, they're done. Like, that's it. No 9-3 Notre Dame teams getting in with the lack of quality wins they would have.
803-404-6100. That's the majority of the big games. Tomorrow we'll circle back through. There's other really good games. Florida State playing at 10:30. So if you at least want a team that you're familiar with, they travel to Stanford. We'll talk more about that tomorrow. But coming up next, we'll catch up with David Waters of Gator Breakdown. He'll give us the lowdown on what's going on down in Gainesville. You're listening to the Halftime Show.
It's all right here for our friends over at Pro Swing. I tell you about it all the time, but I'm happy to remind you once again, you can go there, hang out, play some golf in those Golf Zone simulators that take you quite literally all over the world. And if you're looking to improve on your swing, you can also go by for a free 30-minute swing evaluation where they can show you a blueprint of your swing, also give you a couple of pointers and drills to work on as well. And they also use the OnForm coaching app, which allows you a detailed breakdown of your swing and before-after videos so you know what aspects to work on in particular. You can get discounted rates to practice and play at Pro Swing if you're actually taking lessons there as well. They're also a tailor-made dealer and do club fittings as well. You can learn more information on their website, proswingcolumbia.com, or book online at 803 to book online, or call 803-592-3916 for more information. Our friends over at Pro Swing Columbia.
It is 2:35 here in Columbia as we wrap up the Thursday episode of the Halftime Show and get you set for Jay and Terry coming up. They will be out and about today over at U.S. Brick, 300 Huger Street. You say Huger or Huger?
Hugie. I did say Huger when I first moved here, but learned very quickly that was a mistake.
Just making sure. 300 Huger Street in Columbia. Go by and see them today from 3 to 6 later on today. Joining us now to give us the lowdown, my good buddy, good friend, David Waters, Gator Breakdown, husband, father of a daughter, creator and host of the Florida Gators podcast, and a guy who, are you sleeping at all, or are you on constant Billy Napier watch right now?
Yeah, you know how it goes. It's football season, so not a lot of sleep anyway. But maybe even less when you have coaching talk to go around with. So certainly an eventful time when you cover Florida.
So give us the details. I know most of us have read the reports that have been out there earlier on this week about the meeting with people behind the scenes and this kind of being maybe the final weekend of Billy Napier at Florida. Give us the latest on what we need to know heading into the weekend.
Yeah, so of course it came out, I believe, Matt Hayes yesterday, New York or USA Today post or article that he released. That Scott Strickland had a meeting with a few boosters, and they kind of strong-armed him in the way they will pull financial support if you're not going to move on from Billy Napier and the like. So with that, I had a call with a high Florida official last night, and I put the tweet out last night around 8:30, 8:45 that the meeting was only with one booster and not a group of boosters and a couple of administrators, and there were no demands, there were no ultimatums given towards Scott Strickland, but the kind of message was what do we need to do to move forward, and you have the support of moving forward. So obviously nobody's digging their head in the sand. If you're having this type of meeting, it's likely about the future of Billy Napier and the future of Florida football program, but maybe not as dire, maybe not as demanding as the initial report that came out. So, and look, just presenting the other side of the argument at the same time as well. So, but yeah, then that kind of just lends itself to the question, of course, that's out there right now, that has been thrown out there, whether win or lose, will Billy Napier survive after this weekend when Florida plays Mississippi State? Florida has a bye week after that, and then Georgia. So, it could be, hey, there's a bye week coming up. We're going to make a move regardless so you can get things in place. But there's a lot of people who look at it. Why would you fire a coach after a win? Or if that's the scenario, why don't you just go ahead and fire him if it doesn't matter what the scenario win or lose is on Saturday? So certainly a lot of angles to cover in this hot seat of Billy Napier.
David Waters joining us again this afternoon. You can check him out, Gator Breakdown. Gators Breakdown is his podcast. And David, where did this go? Where has this gone wrong? Like, what over the last few years? What transpired here? Why did this not work? It looks like it's not going to work out. Why did this not work out?
Yeah. First of all, it's just you look at it face value, and it's a win-loss record. And then how did you get here with the win-loss record? And I mean, if you just look at it now, first of all, if you just look at this season, this was supposed to be a better season for Florida. You're supposed to use the 4-game winning streak from last year to kind of boost you up for this year. And you're bringing back DJ Lagway, and you're bringing back an experienced offensive line. You're bringing back so many key pieces to a defense that played so well last season. And Florida's off to another bad start. I mean, you go back to Billy Napier's first season, he beats Utah in game 1, big win, and follow that up with a loss to Kentucky the very next week, and then loses to Tennessee, and then his second season starts the year off with losing to Utah, and then last year, everybody remembers, you lose to Miami, you lose to Texas A&M, so, and then this year, of course, as well, you're starting 2-4, and it's just a bad start. Napier just kind of seems to dig his own grave at the beginning of each season, and then has to find a way to dig himself out of it. And right now you're staring 2-4 in the face for a team that was supposed to be much better and prognosticated and predicted to be a much better team and a college football playoff contender, and we're halfway in the season, and that's not what you're getting so far. So it's just kind of all added up, and anytime it looks like there's some momentum, something happens where it just gets stalled out, and it's just not working here for Billy Napier so far. And the 2-4 start right now is kind of just the final straw for so many people.
Yeah, I was going to say, is this irreparable? Is this, just regardless of what happens, is this done? Is this irreparable?
I think so. You're 2-4. Florida's not done losing games this year. I mean, I think based off of last year, some people don't even want to give him the chance to rebound this year, because then you're wondering if you're just in the same scenario again next year. Because I just mentioned the consistent issues of starting each season off so bad, and you're out of the playoff race, you're out of the SEC race, 6 games into the season. So even if Billy Napier somehow wins this weekend, and then he keeps his job and goes on some kind of winning streak, or wins a lot more than he loses the rest of this season, you're asking yourself, well, how do I know he's getting off to a better season next year? Because he hasn't done it yet. So many people were just kind of ready to pull the plug so he doesn't find a way to save his job again this year and go fall on his face again next year.
Could this theoretically have happened 2 weeks ago if they would have lost to Texas, especially in like blowout fashion?
Oh, I do think so. Texas did buy him, that upset over Texas at home. Certainly bought him another week to be able to go to College Station. And then, with Mississippi State coming up, I think kind of maybe give him the one more hurrah at home. And I do think there might be some, with a bye week coming up, it does make more sense if you're going to make a coaching change just to wait for a bye week so you can get more things in order through 2 weeks instead of just 1 week. But, do you want to fire a coach ahead of a big rivalry game against Georgia? It's the dangerous thing about Florida. Florida could go on and win every game the rest of the schedule, and they could go on and lose every game the rest of the schedule. I'm sure you guys feel the same way about South Carolina this year. There were so many expectations, but neither team is not living up to the expectation that was put on them at the beginning of this year. But it's a team that has high potential, and you see the potential go absolutely the other way as well.
South Carolina will face Florida next year, I believe. I believe we come to the Swamp. I believe. I could be wrong on that. Likely candidate right now. Who is your leading candidate that South Carolina faces as the new head coach at Florida?
I still think you got to go Lane Kiffin until he tells you no. He comes out and says no. There's just been so many connections when Florida has an opening. So, recently of Lane Kiffin's name coming up. He's even mentioned recently that Steve Spurrier's been an idol of his, and he grew up in the state of Florida because his dad coached in the state with Tampa Bay. So there's been his family, or his wife's side of the family, you got connections to Florida as well. So I think it starts there. You make him say no, and then you go down the list if you have to.
Again, David Waters joining us with Gator Breakdown just to give us the rundown of what's transpiring. Could very well be the last game for Billy Napier this weekend. And it's interesting, I think, for South Carolina fans, David, because this is a guy that South Carolina wanted. South Carolina interviewed. Yeah. And I asked you what went wrong, but what's just the personality of Billy? Has he even been able to connect with the fan base? I mean, I know losing sets everybody back, but he just seems on the outside looking at it, he just seems kind of like a standoffish, kind of odd guy.
Yeah, I mean, you get to know him. He's a very personal guy. I mean, very, very nice, certainly. But it looks like nice guys finished last year in some ways, maybe to put it is a way to put it. But a lot of people with his press conferences always so monotone. He bores us to death, and everything is coach speak, and you don't really answer questions straightforward. He kind of beats around the bush a little bit. You hear that, and like you said, winning and losing goes a long way in how you want to put a label on somebody like that. But parents love him. The parents of the recruits love him. Recruits love him. His teammates, or not his teammates, his players love him. It's not working out. Eventually, it has to be about wins and losses. He probably got thrown in an olive branch because of how nice he is and how much the administration loves him behind the scenes. Maybe that's why it's lasted a lot longer, or a little bit longer than some people want it to. But behind the scenes in the building, Billy Napier is very loved. But the fan base. That's kind of seen through some of it a little bit, and hey, it's just about wins and losses, and that's what we're looking at right now.
David, buddy, I appreciate it. I hadn't talked to you in a while, but it's great to hear your voice. Hope the family's doing well, and certainly look forward to catching up with you next year when the Gamecocks and the Gators get together, and we'll certainly have you on between now and then as well.
All right, sounds good. Looking forward to Florida and South Carolina playing again.
That's right. David Waters with a Gator Breakdown does a phenomenal job there for them and is all over this Billy Napier situation. We'll come back and wrap up the Thursday afternoon episode of the Halftime Show. Big thank you there to David Waters with Gator Breakdown. Is that situation? Boy, what a year! James Franklin odd. Hugh Freeze, I think, is getting odd.
Yeah.
Billy Napier is in an odd situation. It just I don't know if this is the new age of college football or if this is just a one-off type deal. Bill Belichick, and I'm going to give you a story on Bill Belichick in a minute.
Yeah, there's some more details coming out about that mess as well. Yeah, it's one of those things, and again, you've been watching and covering college football for a long time. I can never remember this many, and we'll just keep it to Power 4 because there are some other G5 and stuff coaches that have been moved on from already this season as well here in recent weeks, but I can never remember this many what we call now P4 jobs being open simultaneously with Auburn, with maybe Kentucky, with, heck, I don't know, maybe some other Big 10 or Big 12 schools to come in the next handful of weeks and months.
No, but I told you that. I think this is everybody's attempt to get out in front of multiple things.
Yeah.
One, get out in front of the transfer portal a little bit. Two, get out in front of whatever your players may be doing. Three, I would assume try and go find a new head coach. Go ahead and start tampering.
Yep.
Go ahead. Yeah, that T word. That's a bad word, but go ahead and start getting out there and be like, hey.
By the way, just teased on the TV, exclusive interview with James Franklin Saturday on game day.
Yes.
That's going to be worth seeing.
Yes, it is. Speaking of which, not James Franklin, but I ask you, if you're a college football coach and you need to raise a little money.
Yep.
Got to raise a little money. Where would you head to do some fundraising?
Probably the local touchdown club or something to that effect, where the high-level donors are typically, or whatever local golf course.
Golf course,
the golf course, that's a good place. In terms of like being in a place where you feel like a lot of them would be at once, that type of thing. Do you have a different suggestion?
So reports are now surfacing that 2 weeks prior to the start of the North Carolina football season, North Carolina GM, General Manager Mike Lombardi, left the team for a fundraising trip to Saudi Arabia.
All right. This is not the first school to look into private equity and the Saudi public investment funds for money.
But this is just one thing after another. I mean, again, so I just mentioned Napier could be done by the weekend.
Yep.
You just mentioned it. Hugh Freeze could be done by the weekend. Luke Fickell could be done by the weekend. Bill Belichick may not make it past Friday night.
He may not.
That's the wildest thing out of all of this.
Yeah. No, it absolutely is. And again, this went from being an interesting story of the most successful head coach in NFL history coming down the college ranks to this dumpster fire we can't look away from. And let's be honest here, Michael Lombardi has a lot to do with why this has turned into the mess that it's become.
If you haven't paid attention, he is despised.
Yes.
There. He is absolutely despised. And
did he get fired from like every job he ever had in the NFL, with the exception of the Patriots?
I saw somebody on Twitter say that he is one of the smartest guys in the NFL, but one of the smartest guys in the NFL typically usually gets hired by organizations, and he would never get hired.
Yeah, that's
and now it makes kind of sense. Yeah, it makes sense. But yeah, nothing like a trip to Saudi Arabia for a little bit of fundraising that clearly they don't even know what they're doing with now.
They position themselves to be the 33rd NFL team. Let's just assume you actually take your pick. Titans or Jets? Who's the worst team in the NFL right now, in your opinion? Titans did just fire their coach.
I was going to say Titans. I kind of lean Titans. Titans have no business having won a game.
If North Carolina played the Titans,
no.
How brutal would that be?
Titans by 50.
I'd go by 100.
Yeah, bad.
And that's only because the clock only allows you to score so many points.
Good point. Yeah. Well, the Titans would have their own set of mistakes in that game.
Sure.
Yeah, that's it's something else to behold right now. But I just want you to think about that. Now, the odds of all four of those coaching openings happening over the weekend are slim. The odds of one of them?
I feel comfortable with two. I think 2 of those 4 jobs, I'm going to go with Napier definitely, and then Luke Fickell at Wisconsin. I feel like definitely those 2 jobs, maybe a 3rd one.
And Wisconsin's a sleeping job. I mean,
it should be.
I'll be interested to see again the old butterfly flaps its wings in Madison or Chapel Hill or wherever, Fayetteville, and what does it cause? Because you're right. If you just go by that, that's 8 significant, right now as we know it, 8 significant head coaching jobs that can command pretty good coaches.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure more to come.
We will do it all again tomorrow. We'll have Brian Edwards on from Vegas Insider. Chris Deering will give us the high school highlights of the week. And we will gear you up for what's going to be a really fun game on Saturday, Tyler. I'm excited. This might be the most excited I've been for a game this year.
Talk about it tomorrow.
All right, I'll try and bring energy. Y'all have a great rest of the day.